Thank you so much for joining Let's Chat. My name is Jim Parker. I've been helping people sell businesses for nearly 25 years. I specialize in selling auto repair businesses. That includes auto general repair, tire shops, oil and lube, collision shops, etc. Today, I'm really excited because I interviewed Chris Cotton, who is a auto repair business consultant, and he's very, very knowledgeable. He's going to try to do three things for you if you hire him. And he does give out a lot of great information today. So make sure you watch the video. But there's three things that he kind of does when he brings you in. He's going to try to make the shop more profitable. He's going to try to get you some of your time back so you can spend more personal time. You can take more vacations. And lastly, you can be less stressed in your operation of your business. But I'm really excited because it was a great interview. Here's Chris now. So, Coach Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I know a couple days ago you were on my podcast, and so here we are, swapping out.
I had such a good time on your podcast. Now,
I'm
what is your
glad.
podcast, Chris? Real quick before we get started, do a shout out.
So we have three that we're working on now. So we have the Weekly Blitz with Chris Cotton. That's me, mainly for auto repair shop owners. We talk a lot of business, but we talk about like a lot of life stuff. Just if I read a book that I find interesting, then I'll share it on there. We have two. I think I cut the 210th episode for that yesterday. And then we have the
Wow.
AutoFix Technology Cast, which is just dealing with the technology that we use in auto repair shops. And then we also have the AutoFix Advisor Cast, which is more based towards service advisors. And one of my service advisor coaches does that one every week. So we have all three of those out there.
Wow, that's great, Chris. You've got your hands full doing all those. And I want to start off. But how did you get into coaching for auto repair shop owners? How did that whole all start out for you?
I'm going to skip part of my story and start where the coaching started. So, I forget what year it was, but I bought an auto repair shop after having worked there as a service advisor and then a manager, and then the owner's like, "Hey, we want to sell part of this to you. We're going to move, and we want you to have some skin in the game, and then way we think you'll take better care of it." Well, so I agreed to buy 25% of the business. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, "Hey, we decided we don't want to have anything in this shop at all. We just want to sell you the other 75% and be done." And so I'm like, "Uh-oh." So I went from zero owner to 25 to 100% owner in like that amount of time. And I was always great at selling things, talking to people, customer relationships. And after I bought it, I knew there were some things missing, some things that I didn't understand. And I found some um, binders from some classes on the wall, and they're really dirty. The previous owner, I don't think, used them very much. Um, but I started reading through them, and I'm like, "Oh, this is a lot of information." But there was a lot of stuff that was missing. Like it's just the binders for classes and things like that. And I knew the name because the coaching company was on the front of it. And I'm like, you know what? If they ever reach out to me, I'll sign up for coaching. So they eventually did. I signed up for coaching. They coached me for 4 or 5 years, I think, until we kind of grew the business and got it to a point to where I didn't have to work in the business all the time. And then one day my coach was like, "Hey, we think you'd be a great coach. Are you interested in coming to work for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." Started it, fell in love with it. I've been doing it for over 15 years now, I think. Um, uh, Taught shops all across the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, which I know, don't anybody send me a dirty email. I know Puerto Rico's part of the United States, but it is a little different down there. So not quite the same. And just love it, have a ball. I have other coaches that work for me now. We do the podcast and everything else. And um, just love helping other shop owners.
That's great. That's great. Now, you said to me one time that you got your education through making a lot of mistakes. Can you
Oh, yeah.
elaborate on that? And I think that happens to a lot of us.
Well, I think with a lot of repair shop owners, you don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? Like you do something, you make the mistake, and then hopefully you learn your lesson that first time. but a lot of times you don't. You make the same lesson, same mistake over and over. And so just like in the beginning, like when I first bought that shop, I was like, oh, okay. And we're talking about in the early 2000s, a shop that was doing 1.5 million a year is a pretty good sized shop. Um, and so I'm like, okay, cash flow's a little weird. I didn't quite understand it. And so I'm like, the one thing I know is just to sell more. And the more you sell, then that's got to fix your problem. But what I realized after I got with the coaching was my margins were way low. And like when I teach classes in person, I tell them, I'm like, my parts margin was ridiculously low. Like my parts margin when I first learned was like 25%, which is less than half of what we coach to, right? And so, um, the net margin that the shop was making was about zero or about 2 to 3% negative. But we always had the cash to pay our bills because we were so close, and we did a lot of accounts receivable, and it'd be nothing for us to come in a day and get $80,000 worth of checks. So although it was a struggle, we always had cash. But what happened was, is I grew the business from like 1.5 million in sales to 2 million in sales in the early 2000s, and still didn't have any money, and reached out to my accountants like, hey, I see my income statement and it says we made like, X amount of dollars. Where's this money at? Because I don't have it. And that was, kind of the start of doing things wrong because I didn't know better, and then just like figuring it out, and then through coaching, and doing way better. So,
So you just kind of were juggling money, just juggling money. You weren't
right,
making money, just kind of juggling the money coming in on the expenses that you had to pay.
right. And that's something that I didn't have a handle on because nobody taught it to me again. So that's another lesson that I had to learn was cash flow. And if you're close to broke or broke, then cash flow is hard because you don't ever have the positive amount of that to go on. And so through all of that experience, I never had a great process around how to handle my cash and everything like that. And so now we have the Auto Shop Profits and Cash Flow system, which is kind of what I learned through the Profit First book, and then learning from Dave Ramsey, and applied it to the shop. So now, we're making great margins. We have our buckets or envelopes, depending on who you're talking to. And, 23% of all my income goes to parts, 32% goes to payroll, and then all of those percentages go in. And we're doing that with the shops, teaching them a cash flow system. So
That's
again,
fantastic.
I had to learn that the hard way, and then figure it out so I could bring it to other people.
Yeah, right, right, right. And the thing is, when you're juggling that cash like that, when you're not profitable and you're just juggling the cash, one little blip that happens in the economy or in your shop can be detrimental and make you go out of business. So you're kind of lucky that that didn't happen to you during that time span until you were up to speed on what you should be doing.
Well, and once we kind of got our margins figured out and kind of moved on, we did really well doing what we were doing. But then, 2008, 2009, 2010 hit, and
Oh, wait, 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 wait,
you,
Chris. So did you have it? Did you figure out your margins and then we went into 2008, 2009, 2010, or did you?
yeah, yeah, no, I had my margins down, but I still didn't have like a handle on cash flow. It was better because the margins were better. Um, but then, I think it's funny, like people that didn't have shops, like all the new people that didn't live through that time, like that was a crazy time in the industry. If you don't remember, like, we were trying to do $20 oil changes just to get a $20 oil change in, and you couldn't sell anything on top of that at all because nobody had any money. Like, it was an interesting time to have a shop, and just there was just nobody was spending any money at all. 10 times worse than COVID. Like COVID was nothing in the auto repair industry. COVID was actually a blessing. It helped a lot of shops out. Um, and sadly, the only ones that really struggled with it are ones that panicked and closed and just never got their footing back because all the other shops that stayed open took over their space. Um, but the housing crisis 2008, 9, 10, that was insane.
Hmm. Chris, before we go too far into the podcast, I do want to say this. I think that I don't think business people that go into business for themselves. because I help people sell auto repair businesses, and I talk to business owners all the time, and I can just say that people that tend to go into business for themselves tend to be very confident in themselves. They feel like they can do things very well on their own. They tend to be, aggressive more than passive, and usually have a very good vision of things, but not the best when it gets into the weeds or the nuts and bolts of things, and sometimes hard for them to delegate. And what I was going to really lead to was that they do tend to feel very confident in their ability, that they tend not to seek out the capability and knowledge of, and I'm not saying everybody, but a good majority of them seek out the knowledge and the capability of you and other people in other places with knowledge. But I can tell you, for helping people sell business for nearly 25 years, the business owners that do go to consulting and coaching and try to pick things up in the industry from peer groups and all that, they tend to be the most successful business owners. And so if you're listening out there and you've never thought about hiring a coach or a consultant, and you're listening to this and going, well, I don't want to listen to this, da, 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 you should. I'm telling you, the most successful businesses that I come across at some point had consulting and coaching. And look at Chris. Not only did his shop turn around and make it much more profitable and better because he did it for 4 or 5 years, but then he became a coach and consultant himself. And kudos to what you've done, Chris. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. And not too long ago, I did a podcast that just talked about coaching. Um, it's a fact. People who are coached do better. Tom Brady, like, I don't know how many coaches he has, but you've got like back in the day, you've got a football coach, a position quarterback coach, a nutrition
Nutrition.
coach,
Yep.
somebody that handles, all of his massages and workout. You've got like a strength and conditioning coach. You have all these different people. And I love our industry. I love our shop owners. They have big hearts, but um, the one thing it takes me back to what we just said. Most of them think that they can work harder and it'll get them out of the hole they're in. If you're not making any money, working harder is just going to just actually put you deeper in debt if you're making margins that are negative. Like you can't take a shop that has 50 cars a week and loses money and give them 100 cars a week and makes money. Like, I've never seen it happen. Like, it just doesn't, because usually it's the margins and other stuff that are messed up. So you've got to fix the margins first and then go into the rest of the business.
Well, you got that the scenario of the 50 cars, you move to 100, 50 cars not making any money, you move to 100 cars. What you are increasing is the stress and the problems that the shop is having, and you're not
Right.
doubling it. You're quadrupling it probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think we talked about a little bit on our podcast, but the shop that I just bought, one of the things that we realized was their average pair order was low. And we've spent the last 6 months just focusing on better margins, but, doing a better job of the DVI, things like that. And we've been able to double the average pair order in less than 6 months. And we've doubled the sales of the business um, without having to go too crazy with a lot of stuff.
Hmm. So what are the issues that you think that you see the most often with auto shop owners? Like the stuff that's easiest to pick off and get fixed.
Um, so kind of just starting from the bottom, it's the margins, right? Like, you got to get the margins right. And then whenever you look into the margins, you kind of splinter off into the other things. So, parts wise, a lot of shop owners just use whatever the dealer list is, and they don't spend any time or effort marketing it up properly. A lot of shop owners still are using pen and paper, or using like old, what we would call like a legacy system, like Mitchell and stuff. And so Mitchell's okay, but there are systems out there that are way better. And, once you have a DVI tied into it, one of the things we know is that, because we've tracked it on our end, shops that switch from no real inspection process that go to a DVI process, their average repair order goes up about $245 a ticket just by adding that in. And so a lot of shop owners are scared and don't want to pay another $100 for a better shop management system. but that $100 can make you another $15,000 a month, just doing that one thing.
Hmm.
So, if we kind of go into labor a little bit, I would say, so right now, best guess is there's 240,000 repair shops in the country, give or take. And we're consolidating and actually shrinking bays all the time. Um, I would probably say 75% of them are running an incorrect labor rate, meaning they're probably too cheap. The way that the industry's always done it is they've used the Oreo method. They call 10 shops in town. They average them out and they're in the middle. They don't want to be low. They don't want to be high. But the correct way to figure out what your labor rate should be is to look at what your labor costs are with the tax and benefit load, and then use a multiplier, and then that's what your labor rate should be. It doesn't matter what anybody else around you's doing, because you could have a shop that's been there for 50 years and has been paid off for 40, and they have no overhead, so they can afford to have their labor rate lower. You have to use the science of numbers, because numbers never lie, and figure out what your costs are, and then you figure out your margin, and then you go from there. Um, and then on top of that, pay plans. I see a lot of people in trouble with pay plans. They give people guaranteed money, guaranteed salaries. Our shop's in Colorado, so we pay all of our techs. We're not on flat rate or anything, but it's really our job as shop owner, manager, and whatever to make sure that we sell all the labor that we have on the shelf. In a four-man shop, 40 hours a week, you've got 160 hours of labor that you're paying for every week, and you have to make sure that you sell as much of that as you can and collect as much as that you can to be successful. So I mean, it's really simple. Like, shop owners are the greatest people in the world, um, and they kind of run their business with their heart a lot and not necessarily the pocketbook. I don't know how many shop owners I've seen. Oh, I can do it better. I can do it cheaper, and then they get out and they find out that, ooh, what's workers' comp insurance?
Yeah.
What's this rent that I have to pay? And then, oh, I have a triple net lease, so now I owe $18,000 a year in um, tax. Like it's easy on the surface to be like, oh, I can do it better, I can do it cheaper, but there's so much more that goes into it.
Do you think auto shop owners typically know the average auto shop owner typically knows their numbers?
No, I would say no. Like,
Yeah.
I would say less than 50% of them probably know. Like, if I called 100 shops right now and said, what's your average repair, or start top to bottom, what's your average estimate, what's your average repair order, what's your gross profit margin, what's your net, I would say less than 50 of them could probably answer those, just like right off
Yeah.
the top.
Yeah, I experienced
Um,
that too. The same thing when I've talked to small business owners. They don't know their numbers that well. And that's, I mean, you're a business owner, and I'm not condemning anybody. It's just, you are a business owner, you own your own business, you're there to make money for yourself and for your family. And a large part of that is looking at your financials, looking at your KPIs, looking at the certain things that are going to help drive your business and help make your business be profitable. You should know that and stay on top of that. I mean, that's why you're in business at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. And really, your income statement, those things, that's your scorecard for success. Like, how, what, and a lot of shop owners don't have a goal, right? Like, when I talk to them about goal, what's your goal for the year? What's the goal for 2 years from now? They just don't have any. Whereas my shop, we sit down as a group and talk about it at the beginning of every month. Here's how last month went. Here's the goals for this month. Here's the goals. Here's how the goals affect you individually, as far as, kind of what we want to see from each of you. And then everybody on the team's like, moving towards the goal. We all have a purpose in mind, and we all have a place to go.
And that's great. And sometimes owners have a goal, but it's kind of like a made up goal with no plan on how to actually get there. They're just like, yeah,
Right.
I want to hit 2 million next year. Oh, great. Okay, why do you think you'll hit 2 million next year? I don't know. I just feel
Right.
like we will. Like, okay,
Right.
it's not much of a plan.
But and then if you think about it, like, I don't know if anybody's ever watched like SEAL Team or all of these other SEAL type dramas, just for instance, but those people have a goal too, but they've also got like a sub goal to every goal in reaching that goal. Like, if you go and watch one of those shows, they have a code like, okay, we're we're passing luck right now. And then the next goal they achieve, they're like, okay, we're passing Bubs right now. Those are all the steps in the goal to get them to the end so they can win. I mean, and if you look at like high performing teams, that's what they do. They have goals, they have checkpoints, they have places along the way that they're trying to achieve to get them to the end.
So you had mentioned before, not on this podcast, but in our conversations in the past, Chris, that you believe in helping the owner get paid first, having
Right.
them pay themselves first. Can you just talk to the readership, the viewership a little bit about that?
I mean, so it's like when you fly on an airplane, right? Like, what do they tell you when you're flying an airplane? Make sure you put your oxygen mask on first and then help those around you. If you and where this comes from is I talk to a lot of shop owners that one of the first things I ask them is like, if you opened your top drawer of your desk, how many checks do you have in there that you can't cash to yourself? And most of them say 4, 5, 6, 10, or most of them laugh and say, I've never written a check in 20 years. But if the owner and the owner's family is not being taken care of, I don't know how you can be successful at what you do. You have to be successful first, and then you can help your employees out. Employees are happy, customers are happy, and that all circles back to you. But I wish I had a number on it. Like, there's so many shop owners out there that put themselves last, and they're in trouble with their spouse. They're getting divorces. They've never seen their kids play any games. Um, the owner wants their kids to be able to go to college, go do something else, whatever that is, and they just don't have the money for any of that. And it's because they put everybody else first. Like, your business, it's okay to make a profit. Like, do you think Donald Trump loses sleep at night about making a profit on something that he does? Hell no. Like, he knows
Profit's
exactly
not
what
a
his
negative
margins need to
word.
be.
I don't know where
Yeah,
profit is starting to get a negative connotation. It's not.
I think people felt shameful or feel shameful because they make a profit, or they have nice things, or they have whatever. Um, the other things that I tell the guys all the time, we have a standard donation that we make every month out of the business, the coaching company and the shop. We kind of cycle them through, but we can also, if somebody drove into our shop today and was having a hard time and we wanted to help them out, we could. And the reason we can do that is because we make enough money to help those around us and help those in need. And again, that's fine. Like, if you're a shop owner and you want to do that, but don't do it at the expense of your family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like you're on the airplane and there's a problem with the plane going down and the oxygen masks come down. You're supposed to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help anybody else, the elderly or your children or anything like that. It's kind of the same thing what you're saying. Help yourself out first, and that gives you the ability to help out other people. But if you're constantly stressed out because you're having a hard time paying your bills, personal bills, and that's causing marital problems, like you said, and problems in the family and stress and everything like that, you're not going to be very effective running the business and taking care of other people.
Right. And you have to be able, like, owning a shop's mentally and physically exhausting. Like I want you to be on a happy footing financially. I want you to be happy at home. I want you to have work-life balance. Um, and this is kind of along the same lines. A lot of shop owners want to go to the gym and work out and whatever, but they feel bad leaving the shop to go do that. I'm like, most shop owners are there at like 4:35, 6 in the morning, work till 10, then go to the gym and work out for an hour or two, then go lunch and then come back. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Um, and you also have to be in a position to where you're not the only person doing everything. I don't know what you see a lot when you're doing evaluations and stuff, but I'll see an evaluation where it's a small shop and you've got one technician, and then the owner, that's another technician, and then their spouse is a service advisor bookkeeper, and then those two want to go away and retire, and they expect me to pay a premium for a business with one employee in it when all the other workers have left. That's just not something that an investor, somebody that wants to buy that business, is interested in.
That's not a sellable business right there at all.
Right.
So even down though, I've even seen shops that have, they might have three or four techs in the shop. It's still a smaller shop, but they have three or four techs, and but the owner is doing all the diagnostics and the other techs don't know how to do the diagnostics or not able to do them very well, and that makes it tough to sell as well. Like that's one of the biggest things you should be doing is cross training your staff, so people know how to do different jobs so that people can replace different people. I mean, that's not only good if you're going to sell your business, but it's also just good business practice in general. Is just
Right.
having as many people at your shop being able to do as many different jobs if they had to as possible. You don't know when somebody's going to
Well,
be out.
well, and so that's the thing, right? Like, what happens if the owner that's doing half of everything gets cancer and can't work? Then what kind of a position does that put the technician in or the spouse in? Because now these two people were relying on you to do your job, and you just physically can't. You either have to hire somebody to come in and do that or whatever, and then go on. Like, I want people to be able to go for a month's vacation in Hawaii, and if they want to look at the numbers every day, they can look at the numbers, but the shop operates without them. Like, that should
Yeah.
be the goal, I think.
I think so too. And nothing wrong with checking in with the shop or phone call every couple of days if you want to. But for the most part, the shop's running without you. And that's it. You're good. Check on some key numbers, check on the employees. That's it. That's a sign of a good business, and that's the kind of business that people want to buy at the end of the day.
Yeah, and again, yeah, that's a sellable business. Like the shop that I have, I would have never bought the shop I have if I had to work in it every day. Like, I just don't have time doing what I'm doing with auto fix and everything else to also run a shop. And I told my wife, I'm like, if we ever get to the point to where I have to work in the shop every day, we've done something wrong somewhere. I don't know where, but we've done something wrong.
Chris, I want to go back to the consulting in a minute, but you've acquired a couple shops over the years. You've seen a lot out there, and I just want to pick your brain for a minute as a buyer because these are the things I'm preaching all the time to business owners. That they should be preparing to do before they sell their business. I mean, 40% of all the people in the United States right now were business owners in the United States were born before 1964, and then
Crazy.
50% of deals that happen on an annual basis are being sold without for a reason that they weren't planning on selling. Like it was either a divorce or the owner had a disability situation or a death or something like that. 50% of the deal. So even if you're not retiring in a couple of years, you should be planning. Back of your head should be thinking, I need to have my business in the best shape to sell because you never know when you might have to do that. What are some deal stoppers for you as a buyer when it comes to acquiring a business?
So first you got to figure out who you're dealing with. I'm kind of a hard ass and I'm pretty tough when I'm buying. So, um, I want a business that, um, has processes and procedures in place. I want a business that has some sort of management structure in place. And if it doesn't have that, then I start automatically deducting from the price. Like, okay, there's an owner in it that's acting as a manager, but that's not going to be me. So, okay, it's great if the owner says he pays himself $100,000 a year, but that $100,000 a year is not going to me now. It's going to go to a manager to manage that
Mhm.
place. So I have to make up for that somewhere, either when I purchase it or whatever. Um, and then two, I know different companies do it differently. Like, some look at EBITDA and then they have a multiplier for this and then a multiplier for that to try to get it to where it's at. Um, I also personally like to buy maybe some distressed shops a little bit just from my end of it. But if somebody did this and I was like wowed, I would pay a premium. If somebody had management structure in place and the owner didn't have to be there, if their margins were on point, if I had a conversation with the owner and said, "Hey, show me your numbers," and they could sit down and in 5 minutes have it emailed to me without having to scramble to get numbers and everything like that, that would impress me. I'm not really sure I'm answering your question, but this is
No, you
what.
are. What about personal
Okay.
expenses? Tons of personal expenses being run through the business.
Well, I mean, when I look at it, I'm deducting it all out because I want you to have your business and your personal life separated, right? And be able to do that. The other thing I would tell you is whether you just bought a shop or you're 10 years into it, you should always be prepared to sell it. Like if
Yep.
something bad happened to you tomorrow and you needed to sell it, you should be prepared to sell. And getting prepared to sell a shop is not short time. Like if you have a shop that has bad numbers, bad margins, you're gonna have to show a 2-year track record of that or
At least 2 years.
or more in order to establish the fact that that's what those numbers can do. If not, you're basically a fire sale, and somebody like me or whatever is going to swoop in and buy it and be able to see the upside of it, and I'll be the one to capitalize on it. So you might as well do it. That way somebody else doesn't have to buy it. But again, good numbers, good processes and procedures, being able to access your numbers. The other big thing, talking about profit and whatever, um, I don't know where this came from, because I don't think it was from owners, but it's a bad thing now. Like, you have all these shyster accountants that don't specialize in anything, and they're like, oh, well, you need to buy a bunch of trucks at the end of the year. You need to buy this equipment. You need to hide money and not pay Uncle Sam, which is the exact opposite of what you need to be doing if you're trying to sell the business. You need to show a profit. Just like it's okay to make a profit, it's okay to pay Uncle Sam. Like,
Yeah.
I want you to be, and that's part of the auto shop profits and cash flow system, is we set aside money for our sales tax, because sales tax doesn't belong to owners. A lot of them get in trouble with that. And then we set aside 3 or 5% every month, or excuse me, every time we get income, and that goes into a holding account to pay our taxes at the end of the year. And then if you got money left over, then you get to write yourself a check for the difference. And there's nothing like talking to a shop owner that says, hey, I owe $42,000 at the end of the year, and they look in their account, the withholding part of it, and they've got $80,000 in it, and they just stroke a check through the business to Uncle Sam, and then they just disperse the rest to themselves on top of what they paid him and on top of their other profits. Like, that's a powerful place to be in.
Yeah.
And you can rule your world if you're in that, doing that.
Yep. Yep. I appreciate you giving some insight in that. A lot of the things that you said are the same things that I preach all the time to business owners to get them up to speed. I do want to make one comment to somebody that's listening to this right now. You had mentioned, Chris, that you want that owner to be basically an absentee owner. There's kind of two, or you're going to hire somebody to replace them. If you're listening to this, there's basically two. There's multiple types of buyers, so I don't want to get any weird emails, but let's put them into two buckets. You've got individual buyers that are planning on buying the business, and they're going to be the owner operator. So they're planning on buying the shop. They plan on being an owner operator. In that case, they would be taking over the owner's salary. And there's a good amount of buyers out there that are like that. And then you've got your other buyers that are more of investor type buyers. Those could be private equity groups, industry players, family offices, or somebody like Chris that's just a multiple shop owner, that's buying it more from an investment standpoint, and they are going to hire somebody to operate the business for them. So on a smaller deal, it's okay that you're the owner and you're working full time in there. You should still be
Yeah.
able to take vacations. You should still have people cross trained in the shop. Your other techs should be able to do diagnostics, things like that. But if you're a smaller shop, you're probably going to be acquired by somebody that's going to be an owner operator. A little bit bigger of a shop, you're going to be targeting a buyer like Chris. Um, so Chris, what does a typical coaching situation look like for you when you engage with a business owner? What does that look like?
I mean, at this point, we get kind of people of all different sizes, all different backgrounds. Um, if we just look at somebody that, like, hears this podcast and they're like, man, you know what? I'm tired of not being able to pay myself. I'm tired of not, being able to make my family come first and things like that. Typically, when we look at the numbers, we see a lot of things margin wise that can be helped. And then once you get the margins fixed, you can go into productivity, pay plans, just management and things like that. Um, as a coach, we take a lot of grief sometimes from other people in the industry. Like, there was somebody wrote an article and I started to reply to it, and then it's one of those things that you write a reply out and then you delete it because you're like, that's people probably don't need to hear that. But
But you feel
somebody in
better
the
after you do it.
I feel better, but I still wish I would have. It's one of those things that I should have just left it and then gone. But what had happened is somebody in the industry had said, coaches, what coaches do is they just go out and tell everybody to raise their labor rate, and then there you go. And part of my rebuttal was, well, if your labor rate wasn't screwed up, somebody wouldn't have to tell you to fix it and then go on from there. Like those are the quick, easy fixes that we hold shop owners accountable. Okay, your labor rate's not correct. Your parts margin's not correct. Here's the other things, that you're doing incorrectly. We have to show that to you, and then we have to come up with a plan, and then we have to execute the plan. And then the big impact of coaching is oh shit, Chris is going to call tomorrow at 2 p.m. and I haven't done my homework yet.
Yeah.
Or I told him I was going to do this and change my labor rate and I haven't yet. That's the big thing with coaching, is somebody holding you accountable. So you've kind of got this low people. And one of my greatest success stories is a shop owner that was doing like $400,000 a year, was like, hey, I can do better as a technician than I can as an owner. And fast forward, 4 years later to now, he's going to do $3 million this year. He's going to net over 25%, and he's worked himself out of the business. So you can, in a short amount of time, grow from a smaller shop to a bigger shop. It's not without effort, but it's easy to do. And then so then kind of the next step up is you have shop owners that have maybe been to some industry events. They've listened to some podcasts. And here's the other thing I will tell you: if you have the gumption and the want to, there's so much information out on YouTube, podcasts, everything. Like, you can do what you need to do to fix your business with the free information out there. Most people can't because of the accountability piece. But if you go back to when in the 2000s, we barely had internet. We barely had websites. There was no such thing as podcasting back then. You had to go to somebody else to get this type of information. So you have this
readily available. I'm going to fight back on that a little bit. It's readily available. All the information is probably there, but one, it's all over the place. Where you
right.
go to somebody like you, it's all you got somebody can organize it all for you and put a flow on it. Plus, you can do it specific for their business specifically because you're looking at
right.
the financials and everything.
Yep. And I will tell you, like, some of the Facebook groups are sketchy. Like, some of those people shouldn't be giving advice and you shouldn't be taking it from them. But usually if somebody in the industry, like a coach or coaching company, if they have a class, if they have a webinar, if they have a podcast, usually that's pretty good information. So you have this middle tier of shop owners that know they want to make a change. They've made some changes and they felt the success and they're ready to push it forward. And then kind of above that, you have shop operators that have really good businesses. They may be doing $1.5 million to 3, 4, 5 million a year. They may have been with a coaching company for a while, but they feel like they've learned everything they can from that coaching company. And so they're ready to try something new. And so that's really kind of like the three buckets that we draw from, and not really specialize in, but we can build individual tailored plans for all of those types of people in those situations. And so we also, we're heavy into European repair shops. We do a lot of general repair shops. We do general repair with tire shops. One of the shops I had was a Valvoline Express Care. So we also have quick lube background. So we kind of touch all of those different niches within our industry.
No, that's great. That's great. I get what you're saying too about that. I wanted to back up to what you said a few minutes ago, but people will say, well, they'll just tell you to increase your labor rates, then move on. And I agree with you. It's like those are the three, because the three biggest expenses for not just auto repair and tire shops and oil and lube, but any business out there is usually the labor cost of goods, and rent. Rent's a fixed expense,
right.
So you usually can't do anything with that. So you got those are the two biggest expenses: cost of goods and labor. You're right. That's the easiest pickings right there. You get that situated right off the bat because that's the easy thing to do, and then move on from there. You can just hit everything else. So that's very short-sighted of that individual, because I think you guys are going. Because at the end of the day, look, you guys are helping the businesses be more profitable. So the owner makes more money at the end of the day. You're trying to get the owner not to have to be there all the time. So they're getting their time back. And then the natural result of those two things is they're going to have a lot less stress in the business. And I think if you talk to most business owners, what are the things you're worried about the most? And they're going to say, well, money, I have no time and I'm always
Yeah.
stressed out. And here you are,
Right.
Chris, you're trying to solve those three issues for them. And maybe you even put them in the position where, and this is okay with me, that you put them in a position where they don't want to sell because they're like, wow, why would I sell now? I'm making a lot of money. I got my time back. I'm not stressed out. I say that because people still need to sell because they're going to retire and there's going to be
Right.
other issues that are going to take place. But for those people that are just selling for one of those three issues, you can put them in a position like you do with this gentleman, that group of $400,000 in gross sales. So what do you say, 3 million?
Yeah, he'll be over 3 million this year.
That's amazing. Kudos to you and kudos to him.
Yep.
You talked a little
And
bit about the accountability issue with business owners. Can we touch a little bit more on that accountability thing? Because I think that I agree with you. I think that's kind of important. And as business owners, we tend not to have anybody that we have to be accountable to.
well, and that's it, right? Like if you don't have you don't have a coach or you don't have a peer group, or some smaller group of people that you can talk business with, you just don't have anybody to talk business with. Like if you're a small shop operator in Des Moines, Iowa, that is going to do like $700,000, $800,000 this year. You spend all day at the shop. You go home to your spouse, and you can talk about the business, but there's no, like, if they're not in the industry, they can't teach you anything. They can't listen to your numbers and be like, hey, your numbers are broke. Here's how you fix them. And so there's just no learning there, and there's no hammer, right? Like there's no hammer inside of your personal group or your shop to make you want to be better and to be like, oh, it's better. I see a lot of shop owners, they look at their income statement, they're like, whatever, and I'm going to use not harsh language, but maybe some make you wake up language. um they look at their numbers and they're like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing all right, because they also don't have anything to compare that to. And a lot of what we hear is, from shop owners is like, oh, well, I'm a special circumstance. You've never seen or heard or dealt with this before. And I'm like, you know, I get that that's what you believe, but you're in your little fishbowl. And we've dealt with, at this point, thousands of shops across the country. And for the most part, we've seen pretty much everything and we can get you through it. But they don't realize, because they don't have anything to compare it to, they don't realize how bad they suck, right? And so what we do is like, okay, here's your numbers and here's what we know we can do as an industry. So let's make you suck less and get you better. And then they start having this sense of accomplishment and they're doing better and moving forward. And then they're like, oh, I can do better. I can, go on vacation, or I can leave for like a long weekend, or, I can start a 529 plan for my kids, and do those types of things. And once you get that realization to set in and give them the plan and then hold them accountable to the plan, then the sky's the limit. That's why, um, a lot of times we have people come to us or come to me and they're like, well, I've been listening to you for a year. I've been in trouble for 3 years. I should have reached out 6 months ago. But now I'm on my final legs. Like we might not make it 3 more months.
Mm.
I have never had a situation where customers come to me like that. And if they didn't do exactly what we told them to fix the business, they've always succeeded. It's the ones that fail are the ones that, like, okay, you're the last resort, even though I know I should have been with you like 2 years ago. And then they fight you every step of the way. And then they're like, well, I can't do it anymore. I'm giving up. The people that stick to it, say yes, and just do, I mean, it's kind of weird, do what they're told, will be successful.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what it takes to run a successful shop. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a secret out there, but it's a secret if you don't know if you haven't done it. You know, you've done it, you do it, you've seen thousands of shops, so you keep getting better and better and better at it. But you know, you got to do it. I think that's the problem with small business owners, though. They get two things. I think they get stuck in their way, and they don't want to. I like doing it this way. They're hard to change their way of doing things, and they get stuck that way. And I also think that the business owner then, you know, as well, they think they know it all, like we were talking about before. And the more successful ones are the ones that try to learn things from other people, because you know, if you're the look, we have maps for a reason. You know what I mean? If I want
Right.
to drive from Orlando, Florida to Boston, Massachusetts, I can look at a map or GPS or whatever, something somebody else has created a guide for. Or if I can just say, you know what, I'm going to figure it out on my own. I know it's up north. I'm just going to use the sun and I'm just going to start driving. I mean, we're going to be more successful because somebody else planned and knows, hey, these are the roads you get on, than trying to blaze those roads myself. And that's basically what you're giving them, is those road maps that, and then I'm not trying to figure it out on their own. You know.
Well, and the other thing I think that's unique to us is all of the coaches, including the owner me now, we all have shops. Like we have shops that are extremely successful. We can handle a shop. We can handle like a small 2, 3 bay shop, 4 bay shop. Um, and one of my coaches just sent me a text on Friday. His shop just had the first $100,000 shop in a week. Like he did his first $100,000 week ever. Um, and so you do the math on that real quick and figure out. And I remember when they were doing $40,000, $50,000 a week. Um, so the growth is out there. We can get you where you need to be. But and the other thing is like we obviously can't handle everybody. If this video went viral and we had 1,000 shops call us, we couldn't handle the volume, right? Like there are other coaching companies out there that may be a great fit for you. There may be other peer groups out there that are great fit for you. Go out and find them and give it a shot. Like you don't like I would not sit here and say we're the best fit for everybody.
All
Um,
right.
but we do know what we're doing because we do it every day.
Yeah, you have to put some personality. So you have seen shops. You've seen thousands of shops across the United States. What separates the good ones from the great ones, or the great ones from the good ones?
Um, I think just wanting to learn more, and again, wanting to learn what you don't already know. The people that invest in training for themselves, the people that invest in training for their technicians or service advisors, um, the people that put some of their money back into their business and make it look good. I mean, you've probably got, I don't know, I think less than 9% of coaches, or excuse me, I think less than 9% of that 240,000 shops is in some sort of coaching peer group or whatever. So you've got like 91% of the industry that's not doing any of that. But, there's websites where you can go to. There's always a training event around the country. This time of year's kind of been wrapping up the spring show schedule, but they have Vision in Kansas City. You've got WorldPack puts on STX every other year. It's going to be in Washington D.C. next year. Um, you've got Tools in Pennsylvania. You've got Flocka, Mwaka, like all of those. ASTA in North Carolina. The training's out there. You have to and just find it and be open to it. And if you listen to a podcast and learn 2 things that made you money, isn't that worth it? If you went to training and learned 7 things that made you money or improved your life, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I would argue that even if you want learn one nugget
One,
out of
yeah,
every training session, it's probably worth it. You know, it can make a big difference. So, you know,
right.
in auto repair, you know, right now it's very hard to hire and retain employees. What advice do you give shop owners about hiring and retaining those employees in the culture of the shop, and how important that plays into
So,
things?
so I don't know that I would agree with you that it's hard to find employees in the industry.
Mm.
If you went out and talked to that 20% of shop owners that I'm talking about, they don't have issues recruiting. They don't have issues getting people in. People line up at their doors and want to work for them. So if you're a place that somebody doesn't want to come work for you, is it you? Is it them? Like, you need to look at your shop and figure out, like, what's the difference? What's the imagery of my shop, and why can't I attract good people? Um Now, if we arm wrestled over it, or if you're like, Chris, there really is a shortage, I would be like, okay, you're right. But for the top tier shops, it's not an issue.
You know what,
I
Chris? I love that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I love that because there is a shortage out there, but like your approach is a different mindset, and I like that approach. And because at the end
Right.
of the day, you think about it, how many people you're looking for? You're just looking a couple techs, to add to your staff. Is it that hard to if you're a good shop with a good reputation and you treat your employees well with respect, you have good culture. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
that hard to get those people and retain them.
Shouldn't be at all. And so that's why I'm big on having a careers page on your website. You need to have video of your other employees, telling why they like to work there. If you're trying to if you're trying to create an ad for employees to work there, go ask your employees, like, hey, why do you work here? At a shop in Tucson, Arizona, we were creating an ad for a technician position. He went and asked his technicians. One of the technicians, like, the only reason I work here is because I can wear shorts to work every day, and we can't do that in the dealership or everywhere else. So we put that in an ad. About 2-3 weeks after the ad ran, this guy is just like randomly walking through the shop, and the owner goes, hey, you can't be back here, sir. What are you doing? And he's like, I'm a technician at a dealership. I read that your technicians can wear shorts, so I just wanted to come in and see if they could really wear shorts or not. I can start a week from Monday. Does that work for you?
That's awesome. That's great. It
And
ended
and
up
so, of
working
course,
for him.
yeah, still works for him like 3 years later. And so the obviously the owner like interviewed him and whatever else and went through the rest of it.
Yeah.
But the whole reason was that is we asked technicians, why do you like working here? We took that, we put it in a video, we put it in an ad. People are stalking your website, stalking your social media and whatever when they're looking for work. Um, and we had another shop owner that has a dedicated careers page. Had a This was a shop in Phoenix. Had a technician from Utah, I think, Utah or California, call him up and said, hey, I'm moving to Phoenix. This is what I can do at everybody's websites, and I want to come work for you. If you're open and available and have those things at your disposal, then people will find you and come looking for you for work.
Right. Right.
Um, the other thing is like work-life balance. Like, people want to have work-life balance. One of the crazy things that we've started doing in the last couple of years, and we've had more people do this than ever in the history, is shops are moving to like a 4-day work week for their technicians, and their service advisors and everybody else. They come in, they work 4 10-hour shifts, and there's 100 different ways to do that depending on your shop structure and whatever. It doesn't just have to be that you're open 4 days a week. You can be open more and kind of switch those around and do other stuff. But the productivity in all those shops has gone up. Most of those shops, I'm gonna say all those shops are over 100% productivity at this point. I'd have to go back and double check myself, but it's pretty close. So you can take a shop that's doing 85-90% productivity, move them all to 410s, and for some magical reason, they get over the 100% productive mark.
Well, I'm sure it
Which
also
is
has to
just,
do like starting out in the morning. You got to
yeah,
get back to where was I? It takes you 15, 20 minutes. Okay, that's where I was. All right. Blah, blah, blah. And the same thing at the end of the day, where if you're working, 4 10-hour days, it's less start up and takedown. Do you think
right.
that plays a role in it at all?
Yeah, it absolutely does. But the other thing that we've noticed is if they have a 4-day work week, instead of taking off during the week to go do doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, do this, do that, they do that on their day off instead of the days when they're working. And so we don't have those interruptions either. So
Plus, they're more rested, I would imagine, too, because they got 3 full
yep,
days to rest.
yep.
Yeah.
And then, and uh, it doesn't really matter what part of the country you're in, but a lot of our shops are in the Southwest, is Florida, where you get in the middle of summer when it's 115 or 120 with the heat index out there by 3 o'clock. Like those people are wiped out. Like it's a rough week. And then so that's the other thing. A lot of our shops have air conditioning now. Um, and then there's all kinds of different ways depending on where you're at. So you just have to figure out like why would somebody want to work here? What don't I have to bridge that gap? And then how do I bridge the gap? Um,
We've only got a few more minutes, but I can't let you go without asking you this one question, and I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you at the very end if there's anything that we didn't touch on today that you want to leave people with. But before I ask you that, I want to ask you, what about marketing and advertising? That's always a question business owners have is, and I'm not going to pinpoint you exactly what that marketing and advertising question is, but could you touch on marketing and advertising for a business owner?
I mean, well, number one, you have to be marketing and advertising, right? Like, so you have to have a great web page. You have to have some sort of social media where it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Um, if you were a lucky or unlucky soul that drove through my town right now, you'd probably be seeing ads on Facebook for my shop like 6 months from now, just because you drove through town. It pulled you out and did whatever. Um, eh, a lot of times when things get tough, shop owners pull back their advertising, which is
Oh,
exactly the time where you need to like push it forward. Um, I work with a great marketing company that markets our shop. It's called Shop Marketing Pros. They also have a podcast out there that's free for everybody to listen to. It's the Auto Shop Marketing Podcast. Um, uh, and the other thing is don't be afraid to experiment a little bit. One thing that we've noticed, like you may not know about it, but Google changed some stuff around and they're doing something now called local service ads or LSAs. They started it before COVID, and then COVID happened and they pulled it back. But up until recently, the only people that were able to do it is like plumbers, electricians, things like that. But it's something new. We started doing a beta test on it in November last year, and we're actually cutting our Google AdWords budget back and some of our Facebook advertising back because it's been so successful and because it's less expensive. Um, I don't know. Maybe I can look it up real quick. I did a podcast on it not too long ago with the guy from the guy Brian Walker from Shop Marketing Pros. Um, then we just talked about the local service ads. Come on. Um, and then we also did one on his local service ads, but it's something new in the industry. It's having a great impact. Um, so everybody should be doing it. The other thing I would say is you need to advertise and market for the sales you want to be at, not the sales you're currently at now.
yeah.
To be aggressive, you need to be spending 5 to 10% of the total sales amount for where you want to be. So if you're $1.5 million shop and you want to be a $2 million shop, then you need to be spending 5 to 10% of that $2 million in order to get there. And that's like a multifaceted approach. Again, it's website, it's Facebook ads, it's Google ads, it's local service ads. Some people are big on postcards. I've just never been big on postcards. Um, but in your area, they may work. Like some areas, they do work. So you have to be spending money on it. You have to be doing it. Um, and you have to be proactive with it. A lot of times, shop owners sign up with a marketing company, but they're slow to answer the questions. They don't get pictures and videos in time. It takes some effort. And again, if you're so busy underneath the hood of a car or so busy in the business, this is one of those types of things that you don't have time for, don't make time for, that has a huge impact on you. We spend uh so my shop previously did about $1 million a year for 3 years in a row. Like it was within $10,000 for 3 years in a row of what it did. I set a pretty aggressive thing. I wanted to do 1.5 million this year, and so far I think we're pretty much been um we're on track to do 1.5 this year, um against 1 million last year. And sorry, I'm trying to do some math. 50,000 divided by 12. We're spending anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 a month, marketing this shop to get to that level, and that's the reason. That's how we're getting there. So you have to be. I look at them sometimes and I'm like, man, that sucks that we're spending that much money on it. But again, we're doubling the sales from previous year or better. And it's because the marketing people know us, they like us. And right now, about 30% of our customers are new customers in a town of 20,000 people.
Wow.
So, and I would tell you, you might this shop's been here for 40 years, and we pulled all their history over, so we would know if anybody in the last 40 years had come in on that system, and they don't. So that's the other thing I would tell you is, even if you're in a small town, you think everybody knows you're there, you're fooling yourself. There's probably half the town that doesn't know who you are, what you do, or anything else.
Yeah. I know, Chris, you gave me some great advice, but is there anything you want to leave a last thought of anything to somebody who might be listening that we didn't cover today?
I don't think anything that we didn't cover. The big thing I would tell you is, if you're out there, if you're struggling, if you're not struggling and you want help, there's plenty of resources for it. There's free resources out there, podcasts, internet, whatever. There's individual training classes for you to go to. You just have to pick the company, figure out where it is. There are peer groups out there. We run peer groups. There's a ton of other people out there that do peer groups. And then, we have, obviously, the coaching to get for you. I don't care who you go find something, learn something new, put it in your business, and be better than you were yesterday.
Love it. Love it. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being on and taking time out of your busy day. How can people get
Hey,
a hold of you, Chris?
so you can go to autoshopcoaching.com. That's our website. You can email me, Chris at autofixsos.com. So that's CHRIS at AUTOFIXSOS.com. We have a YouTube channel that's Auto Shop Coaching. Just go to YouTube, Auto Shop Coaching. It's there. Facebook page, Auto Shop or Autofix Auto Shop Coaching. It's there. And then if you want to call me, my cell phone number is 580-491-3519, and that comes directly to me. I will pretty much talk to anybody about their shop for 30 minutes. If you go to the website, you can sign up for an appointment time with me, get on my schedule, send me your income statement. We'll talk about it and see where you go from there.
Thank you so much for watching today. If you are struggling in your shop or you want to take your shop to the next level, obviously Chris Cotton is the person to reach out to and talk to and help you get to that next level. He's extremely knowledgeable and an all-around great guy. I think you'll be very happy that you did reach out to Chris. If you're liking the channel, please, I ask you to please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. And if you don't mind, comment. I would love to hear what you've done recently in your shop to make your shop either run more smoothly or take it to the next level. Well, thank you again for joining us.